You are listening to the Age of Heroes podcast, a podcast dedicated to pop culture, fandom, and the geek world. My name is JP Sarricolea. I am a digital creator committed to inspiring others to pursue their passions, their dreams, and goals. I am sitting down with creators and influencers from all walks of life to talk about their work, their experiences, and how to make a positive impact. Welcome to the show. Hey guys, how you doing? JP Sarricolea here, and welcome again to another episode. This is episode 11 of this season, and I want to thank you all, everyone that has been watching these videos, everyone who's been listening to the podcast, to the different platforms. Thank you very much for your support. It's been an amazing season so far. Great guests, great interviews, talking about collectibles, talking about the industry, comics, talking about a lot of things, and it is exciting when we can get together as collectors, as people who are fans and geeks in general, people that love pop culture, to talk about the things that we're passionate about. So today I have a great guest. Name is Joe Blindzider. That's the name. As for those who are familiar with Joe, with Blindzider, he is a person that has been in the is a collector, has been involved in the collectible, at least as far as I know, with statues for quite some time. And Blindzider, you've been always an inspiration. The stuff that you have always, your pictures, your collection has always been amazing. I've always enjoyed that since I met you at, in this case, on Statue Marvel. That's when I saw your pictures. Which, rest in peace, Statue Marvels. Used to love that forum, and but you're still on Instagram, so, and I enjoy looking at your pictures and all of that. So welcome, Joe. Thank you for the opportunity to have this interview with you.
Oh yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Well, Joe, like I was mentioning, you've been an inspiration. You are perhaps one of the first, if not the first person that I remember that was doing a statue photography on statues. It was not a common thing to do back then. Like, people buy statues, that's it. But you combine two things that I'm passionate about. You combine statue collecting with a passion of photography, and you make this amazing looking photos that we can still see on Instagram. And how you got to do that? What prompted you to do that? To start that trend?
Yeah, so like you, I was a member of Statue Marvels, and I had started collecting statues as well, Bowen designs primarily. And through that forum, there were other people there just taking pictures of their statues, and really that just inspired me to get into photography. Just pure photography, as far as capturing a statue or whatever. So there were some, I spent a lot of time trying to learn photography itself, just reading books, watching videos and that. And if you looked at my pictures over time, hopefully they've improved.
They have.
But at some point, I don't know why, I just decided that I like the idea of, dioramas around the statues. I liked the idea of trying to put these statues into an image where they looked real, as real as possible, or at least in some type of environment or something. And I think, I don't know, I just started doing that, and it's progressed from there. So, initially if anyone remembers, I was actually making dioramas for statues, some of which are in the collection.
In the background, yeah.
Yeah. But at some point it got to be where either it was so much work to make all of those, or I couldn't make what I really wanted to do. And that's when I kind of converted to just all digital. But yeah.
Yeah, because I remember, like, the ones in the background, always that particularly that Spider-Man diorama. For those who are listening and they don't have the opportunity to look at the video, watch the video, in the background, he has some dioramas, some Bowen design dioramas, and they look amazing. And I still remember looking at that, the Spider-Man and all the foes in the background. That diorama was always an inspiration to me. I wanted to have something very similar, and I worked towards it. I did not accomplish it, but it was always there as inspiration. And I think that's a great thing about photography, particularly with statues, is that it gives us a glimpse of a vision that we can pursue, something that is sometimes is hard to do. And I think one of the great things about particularly collecting Bowen designs, which unfortunately is not the case anymore, you can still collect some of the older pieces, but is that it gives us the opportunity to create dioramas better than any other company has done so far. How you feel about not having Bowen designs as something that we can rely on as we used to do?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think we were both around at the same time where it was so exciting just to get glimpses of what new statues were coming out, and I think you mentioned on other episodes where just the idea of trying to be able to complete teams or whatever that you were going for, that was all exciting stuff, and I think a lot of us always felt that the Bowen design stuff was the most comic accurate, right? It's like they were pulled right from the pages of comics, and yeah, they're not super detailed or they don't look real like some of the statues nowadays, but I don't know, they just hit that sweet spot, and I think at the time the size and the price point was just perfect.
It was. Now that brings me to that question: how do you get into statue collecting? How do you become a collector?
So I've collected comics for a long time, and I think probably like most people, I was in a store somewhere and there was a Bowen Designs Daredevil statue sitting there, and I was just so amazed at it. I promptly bought it, and then like people's like, oh, I'm just going to get my favorite characters, just one or two, and then it starts expanding, and then I end up with what I have now. So yeah, I was never a completist, but I always had some set goal of what I wanted, how many I wanted or what characters I wanted. So yeah.
Yeah, because I see like in the bag you have the Spider-Man. We kind of share the same thing because you have the Spider-Man display, you have the Fantastic Four display, which I grew up with the Fantastic Four. John Byrne was my hero. That era was the best in my opinion. And you got the Avengers, you also had the X-Men. And to me, though, that's the golden era. Of course, this is the Silver Age. The Bronze Age. But to me, that was the time, between that Bronze Age and into the Dark Ages, whatever. But it was a time where it was so exciting to be a comic book reader. Do you still read comics?
I do. I don't buy individual comics anymore. There was a period where I was a hardcover collector as well. I don't know if you've seen any pictures of those, but surrounded by a few too many omnibus myself. But so actually what I do now is to keep up with the new stuff, I actually get trade paperbacks from the library. So that's what keeps me up to date on what's going on. So
I used to do that. I haven't done that. I think I need to renew my card. It's been I used to go to the library myself to get like a kind of stay on track with some of the comic stuff. Nowadays I read digitally, and I know a lot of people are against digital comics, but it's easier for me. Maybe I've just gotten older and like a big tablet, and
sure.
I know some people have a hard time, but I still collect, hardcover books. I still have a passion for it. What besides Marvel, what other things that you read in comics? What other things that you enjoy reading?
Well, I try to follow good creators. So I like DC as well. A lot of independent stuff. So I'm open to almost anything.
Now, let me ask you this, and going back to the same thing, going back to your art, because I consider what you do art. It's it's something that it was always an inspiration, and I know right now there is, which is amazing, that we get to see a lot of photography, particularly with toys. Toy photography is something very common now, particularly 1/6 scale, but also I've seen people using, whether it's Marvel Legends, which is 6-inch figures, 1/12 scale, and they coming out with amazing stuff. Like they do whole dioramas, battles, all that stuff. what is the difference between toy photography and statue photography? What are the parallels, perhaps, but also the differences?
So I think the biggest difference is that, of course, statues are fixed positions, right? They're in a certain pose, and you're kind of limited by that.
Mm-hmm.
There are actually a few toy photographers that I follow as well, just to get inspiration. Also, I'm as amazed
Mm-hmm.
also with their work and their ideas. But yeah, for statues, it again, you're so limited by whatever whatever pose they're in. So it takes a little bit more. It's a little bit harder to come up with an image that would fit. And it's also, I've photographed these for so long, and obviously my collection's not growing, so I don't have any new models to use. So
Mm.
coming up with different ways to photograph them and put them in images, it's been a little bit of a challenge.
Do you think that photography sells? Do you think that good statue photography or anything, product photography, really sells the product?
I think it does to a certain extent. I mean,
Okay.
I've had people say, "Yeah, I saw your picture, and it really made me want that,"
Mm-hmm.
which is great for
The
for
company.
them and the company. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get anything for that, but it's we're all kind of in this together, right? We're all fans, so if that pushes someone over the edge, then I guess that's a good thing. So.
Yeah, because I think one thing that I know, and as a person that has been dedicating a good portion of my life to talk about by collectibles and statues, I noticed that like it depends. Like some companies, they invest a good amount of money into the pre-production, into the advertisement part, and one of those aspects is the photography. Like you have companies like SciShow, they have these nice pictures of the products,
Right.
and that is always sells. Companies like, and I noticed another trend, like there are companies that like Prime One Studio, they do a lot of Photoshop, which is good, and something that you also use as a technique, and that really enhances the view, at least the image, or that really helps with the desire for you to get these pieces, versus some other companies that they really don't invest as much, and sometimes there's that lack of quality on the pictures, so you really don't know if the product is as it's intended to be, or is it shown there. So I don't
Right.
think they sell as well, because I've seen some companies are struggling with that. And I think some companies they're having improvements. I would say, for example, XM Studios is one of them that initially I was never blown away by their photography, but they've been investing more and more into it, and it feels that now it's better. The product looks a lot better. So
Mhm.
I think, do you think the companies need to invest more into that area so they can have more photographers doing the work? Um, that way they can advertise in a better way.
Yes, I'd agree with that. I think, as a collector, when you see an image of a statue that's going to come out, and it potentially is something that I want, I want to see details on how it looks, right? I want to see all the angles, different lighting, close up sometimes. So I think at a minimum, that's required to sell a product, right? If I'm going to spend money on it, then I want to know what I'm getting, when I put that money down. Now, as far as making it more artistic, I think it certainly helps.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think it draws the buyer in to the product more. So I think it's a good idea. How much time and money they spend, of course, depends on the company and all that kind of stuff. But
Do you think that it can also be counterproductive when you are embellishing these pictures to a degree where it's not the actual product? Um, when you get something, because sometimes you hear that disappointment, or you hear the disappointment from a lot of collectors, because the final product, as we all know, is not ever going to match that production, or this is the prototype. Do you think
mhm.
that can also be harmful?
I think it can. I mean, I've seen people disappointed before, yeah, with the prototype being different from the final product. So, but some of that may just be the nature of the business, right? The way it's you sculpt something ahead of time, and it takes however many months to create something, and there may be production issues, whatever. I'm not on the inside, so I don't know. So I imagine there's some things that they just are out of their control. But yeah, but in general, I would agree that the pictures need to be as accurate as possible to the product, especially nowadays when you're pretty much almost forced to pre-order things now if you want to get something, right? So it's not like you can walk into a store sometimes and see it, right? So
Now, when you say that, that's things have changed, and I can tell you one thing. For example, I do on my stuff that I do on YouTube. I have to do these photographs, of course, and doing thumbnails is an art in itself too. You have to sometimes you have to change the color of the image. You have to change some of the filters so the image look good. Also, when you're producing a video, you have to change the filters. You do all these tricks. I remember when I started doing videos 10 years ago, it was just the video. I used to film the first time with my phone back then, which they were not as good as they are now. And that was it. Upload it to YouTube, and that was it. Over time, you kind of learn how to change things around, that you need to, edit the image, make it more clear. And you have to kind of walk the thin line between not giving too much when you add in filters, not to go too unnatural with the color. Because if not, the piece is going to look very different than what the person is going to get in hand. And I know this for some people it's fine, but I know other collectors that they have a hard time with that. Sometimes they ask me, do you add a filter to the video because the color doesn't look right? And it was just like a fraction, just a little fraction of difference of the color. Maybe I just light up a little more, but it's not a big difference. But some people have a hard time adapting to those things. So, but at the same time, I feel that, like you said, it's the nature of the business. Companies have to sell to stay in business, so they have to promote one way or the other. They're not going to show you an ugly picture. They're not going to give you like a bad phone picture. They have to give you the best picture possible. So that way you fell in love with the piece, go and buy it.
Right. Exactly.
And that is like the same as, like selling a car. And then you have the sexy lady right next to the car. You buy the car because first of all, the attraction gets you, the beautiful girl there, whether there is beer or whatever, it's just the attraction. And then of course the product. So it's just advertisement. It's just an iffy situation. Now, in reference to the industry, you and I, we've been collecting for a long time now, since the Bowen days. And there's been a lot of changes in the industry for sure. How do you feel about these changes? From when it used to be just a small community, now you have a really large community, and there's so many different companies producing so many different things for all different franchises. How you feel about this new order, this new world we're living in?
Yeah, it's certainly different. And of course, like anything, everything changes, right? So you have to just kind of go with it. But for me personally, 1/6 scale Bowen scale is the right size for me. When things started to go to quarter scale, the pure size and the cost was a little too much for me, right? I mean, I only have so much space, I only have so much money. So that kind of put me out of the statue collecting arena. Now, obviously whatever people want, that's up to them. With variety, with more companies, you're going to get more choices, and I think that's always a good thing. It doesn't seem to be helping with the prices, but at least you get more options, right? Because I think statue collectors are just as picky as anybody as far as what they're looking for in a specific character or pose or whatever. So for the most part, it's good, but there are some drawbacks, right?
Yeah, there is a lot of drawbacks on it. I think the biggest for me, in reference to what the companies are doing, is that it's amazing what companies are coming up with, but there's a lot of things that I feel that companies have not or are not doing as well as they were. I would say Bowen Designs used to do, and one of them is to keep on track with one thing. Bowen Designs, there was a vision, I would say, to bring as many characters as possible from the Marvel, lore, from the comics. And, you may get, you got several Iron Man statues, but at the same time, in between that, you get all this more darker second tier, third tier characters.
Right.
And that allow you to build these dioramas. And I like you said, the problem with larger pieces, quarter scale, and which I did collect at some point, and I stopped collecting because first, it was restrictive. Not only because you pay more money, and the problem, I think the major problem was that the space limitation. And I'm the type of person that I love these characters. I want to build these dioramas. I want to build these collections with all these characters. I cannot have just the X-Men with Wolverine or Cyclops. I need to have Nightcrawler. I need to have Cyclops. I'm sorry, Colossus. I need to have even the darker characters or the more obscure characters. And I feel that was the nature of it, like building these collections. And the problem with the companies now is that they produce the same character over and over and over and over again. You get like the same Wolverine in so many different colors.
Mm-hmm.
That's disappointing, at least for me. How you feel about companies just doing the same thing over and over?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's they've got this manufacturing structure, right, that they got to follow with marketing and the factories and that kind of thing. So they have to focus on characters that they know will sell, right? So that's why we have so many Batmans and Wolverines and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's disappointing. I can't imagine starting now collecting and just being stuck with just a few characters. So I would think that people would go back and try to hunt down Bowen stuff just because they can get more characters. But I don't know if that's happening now or not. But
yeah, you bring a good point there, because this is the time. Even though we'd say that we as old heads, so we can call it that, we see it as, oh, the ship has sailed, it's over, for Bowen Designs. But this is a great time to go back, and if you want to really get deep into Bowen, to get some of those old Bowen pieces, because I've seen, and like even I go on eBay, some of the pieces that I have, some of them that were highly coveted back then, and I paid top dollar for them. Now they're going for half of that price, or even less than what they were on retail, because people are everybody's going into the quarter scale or the 1/3 scale nowadays. So like you see this amount of product on Facebook groups or on eBay. It's a great time really to get into if you really want to collect the classic stuff. I think it's a perfect time. Do you think that that's the case too, or?
Yeah, I think it is. You've got to find the right people. There are some people selling, right? I've seen a few groups, Facebook groups that people sell. Yeah, there's still a couple of pieces that I wouldn't mind having. They haven't reached the price point that I'd be willing to jump on them, but there's still a couple that I'm looking for.
Yeah, there's a few that I know, like that they got a little too expensive. And that's because, of course, the demand, and there were not that many products, or they came with, it was common to have certain damage in packaging, or things like that. So the number of good pieces, it's limited. But it was fun. And I think that one thing that I do miss from those days is that I felt that that you got to know everybody. At least you didn't know them personally, as we tend to do now. But everybody had whether it was your alter ego on whatever forum, you were Blindzider. That's all I knew. That's all I care about. I was JP Sarri, but there were so many people, and that was it. There was a level of privacy that was kept, which we don't get to see more. But there was a camaraderie. There was a level of friendship, and you got to know everybody. The troublemakers, the people that always have a dissenting opinions. You got to know the people who you constantly have problems with, agreeing in a lot of disagreements about whatever. But it was a different universe, which I feel that now with the social media era of Facebook and Facebook groups, you say you share your opinion and you're gonna be demoralized just to be there because people are going to tear you apart, and then not only be they're not gonna be just critical about what your opinion. You're gonna be critical about your life because they have this glimpse of your life because they can get into your profile, all of that. What do you think about Facebook groups? What is your opinion about this new era of communication that we have for collectors and the community?
Yeah, I think they're similar to yours. It's just unfortunate that not just these groups, but the world's just a little bit more toxic, a little bit meaner than it used to be. Like you said, that previously at least with Statue Marvels, we were all in it together because we all had the love for this product and this whole product line, and that's what kept us together. And typically, we didn't bring other aspects of our lives into it, so it kept us focused, I think. But yeah, it's unfortunate that you can't have a dissenting opinion without someone jumping down and making it personal, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's okay to have different opinions, but let's not make it mean, right? So
yeah, and this is the thing. Like I feel during those, and I'm not trying to sound like the old man saying like, oh, those days were the best, because I think that there is still a lot of good things in collecting now. Statue collecting, there's room for that. I still enjoy it, even though I know everyone is in a different stage, and a lot of collectors who have decided to move away from it, even artists who have decided to move away. Everybody's in a different stage in their life, and that has to do with personal choices and things like that. But I still think there's room to enjoy this. However, I feel that you have to be more careful of what you say and who you express that opinion to versus before. Because yeah, you can say something perhaps mean in a forum, but nobody's watching you in the sense that nobody knows who you really are. This is just maybe you're releasing some steam, but the difference now is that you release some steam that you're gonna be marked for life on Facebook. Yes. And I seen that, like I seen so many toxic environments or toxic engagements where some people who I know who are great collectors who have been in the hobby for a long time, and they're afraid to just come out and say something. Even people who I invited to come here, they decline because they have, I'm not going to share their names, but some people that I invited to the podcast, they decline because they had some interactions that were not really good with some other people. And that really roll into something really terrible or bad and worse, and people, their names get thrown to the mud and all that. And to me, that's just sad, because at the end of the day, I feel that we share the same passion. We love collecting, we love statues, we love comics, we love these things, and we put aside our whatever situations we have in our lives just to come to this place to engage in something that we love, are passionate about, just to come to a place where sometimes the animosity is even worse than in personal life. And I feel that is something that unfortunately it happens, and there's no control per se to do it. Do you think that that it's going to get better at some point?
I don't know about that. I could be pretty pessimistic when it comes to that. But I mean, basically what you said is kind of where I'm at. I mean, it's one reason I don't do a lot on social media. I just, I don't want to get into any of those situations. And it's unfortunate that you can't even give an opinion because you're worried someone's going to attack you in some way, right? So, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Are you paying attention to the companies that they're coming out now? Are you following the new companies? Are you interested in some of this?
Not a lot. I still kind of like to see what's out there. But like I said, I'm not really in the buying game anymore. So, I'm kind of aware of what's out there, but I'm not really following individual companies or anything like that. So,
is there any company, even though you're not following them, anything that you have seen lately that has surprised you?
Maybe not surprised, but I really liked like Tweeterhead stuff is pretty good, especially even their 2.0 stuff is probably even better than the superpower stuff. That's pretty nice. The some of the Prime One stuff I think it's super detailed and nice, but I don't know. It's just a lot, too much for me. But
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to recently to another. It was a sculptor, and it's another guest. Here on the podcast, talking to Joe Mena. I can name him. But Joe Mena, I was talking to him. It was a fantastic episode. But we talk about a lot. He is a sculptor that does a lot of digital stuff. I'm not sure if you're aware of Joe, but he works for a lot of the companies. Has worked for many companies. But he did the Mephisto for Bowen Designs. That was the first digital piece produced for Bowen. The first time the Bowen Designs went into digital production things. That was the first one. And I think that he did the whole thing. And if I'm not mistaken, Randy did some of the final touches of the piece. But and Joe is also a traditional sculptor. So he does both. But we're talking about that. One thing that he mentioned is that just because you add a lot of texture on top of texture on these pieces doesn't make it better. And I feel that a lot of times and that was part of a conversation, a lot of these touches that we're getting to see now, I think the idea is people to add this texture and to the feel of fabric or all this to this and the skin just to make it more realistic. However, that doesn't make it better, or at least the representation, it may look more realistic, but it doesn't improve the art, because ultimately it's just it's a new approach, or perhaps it's a new revision, or you are revising the art or original art that was created from the comics. Because at the end of the day, I feel that some of these characters, and that's one thing that we can go back to what Bowen was doing, is that he stayed true to the source material. Like when you're looking at the pieces, you're looking at the art, whether it's Romita, you're looking at the art of Buscema, you're looking at the art of Neil Adams, you're looking at the art of some of those artists, Jack Kirby, you're looking at the art, and it's so well represented. And to me, it doesn't need to be improved. It doesn't need to be changed.
So similar to with what you're saying is, a lot of the statues now, they're what I would call modern interpretations, right, of the classic characters, and that's fine. There's certainly a place for that. And then there's some that it's still the classic costume, but then they do add a little bit of texture or try to make the materials seem more realistic. So yeah, again, it's, what does the market want? What do collectors want? I think they're all searching for that, and of course, trying to get figure out what people will buy, because it does seem that if you were to do a classic costume, a modern way, but without all that texture and stuff, it does seem like people wouldn't buy it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I don't know.
But you know what? I think the point of the reason why there is a change in the trend, I think it started first, as you mentioned, your first statue, which was the classic Bowen Designs Daredevil, which is the one that initiated the whole trend anyway.
Right.
But the thing is this, you found it at a comic book shop. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of the people who started doing collecting Bowen, back in the day, we were comic book collectors. So the only place to find these pieces was going to a comic book shop. When you go to a comic book shop, you encounter the first piece, and that becomes the start of everything else, that passion and that hobby and the whole craziness of collecting. But it was only a niche group that were buying, and not everyone, because not everyone could afford to buy the statues anyway. But when you start getting into it, you pretty much, you took off. That's the difference now with, I think, this community, that they are becoming collectors, not because they buy comic books. It's just because they're browsing on the internet, they're looking at a video on YouTube, all of a sudden something is recommended to them. Look at this video, they look at it, they go and buy it. They're not necessarily comic book readers. So in their mind, the vision perhaps is also tainted by the images of the MCU or the DCEU, the stuff that they see on TV, video games, and things like that. So they are not as purists. So they want an interpretation that kind of resembles what they see rather than what they have read, as we have. Do you think that is a good thing or it's a bad thing?
Well, again, you're bringing more people into the medium, which I think is good. It's been exciting as a longtime collector to have the MCU show up, and you have all these people that are now aware of these characters and these stories, and they're falling in love with them, just like we did. They just had a different medium for how they were introduced. And if it can bring them into a store and maybe they'll, willing to try a comic or something, that's great, I think. But yeah, I think even with comics, when it was purely just comics, you always had just the pure collectors who were in it to try to find something that was going to be worth money and speculating, that whole era. I think that was the 90s, maybe late 90s. Yeah, you're always going to have that, I think, right?
So now when you talk about speculation, which is another team that is it's always been a hot team, a hot subject for a lot of people. Do you think collectors should collect for the passion and the love of the characters, or they should collect thinking on the value of the product, or just for I would say an investment purpose? How you feel about that?
No, value is secondary, if not even lower. Yeah, you need to do it, in my opinion. You need to do it because you like the character, you like the story it represents, or purely for the art of it. I mean, some of the statues I like because of the artistic value of it, right? I like the sculpt and how they designed it or whatever. Yeah, for me, it's never been about money at all. I have no plans to get rid of my statue collection anytime soon, but yeah.
Do you care about edition sizes?
Not really. I mean, early on, there was a little bit of excitement. Oh, I got number one or AP or whatever, but not really. I think if you like it for what it is, a piece of art representing something that a character you love, then I don't think that edition size really matters.
Now, with these big sizes that we, like big production companies doing a lot of, there is technically at this point, the market is overflooded with so many products, which makes it even harder to collect because they have inflated prices first and foremost from these products just coming out of the gate. The products are like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, which is unthinkable in my mind. Because I'm thinking if I'm gonna pay $3,000 for a statue, I can actually invest that and I can get a whole collection for $3,000.
Right.
So I don't see it, and this pace is the biggest limitation that we have. But looking at this being so overcrowded, do you think that this bubble is going to burst at some point? Do you think that we're going to get to, we've been talking about it forever, but do you think that in reality we're going to get to that place where this is going to crash as the comic book, the comics did at some point in the 90s?
Yeah, whether it's a full crash, I don't know, but I think you'll probably see some pullback in some way, whether it's a consolidation of companies or they start reducing the scale again, or I think something's going to happen because that price point is pretty high and it really makes it limited for people to get into it. So, but I think you had mentioned some other time that even the smaller scales are pretty expensive. So I feel like at some point it's going to have to change. Something's going to have to change, whether that's just less product or hopefully not cheaper quality, but it's only so small you can get too, right? So I don't know. I think something will change soon. It does feel like we're almost at that point where something's going to happen, but I don't know what.
Yeah, because like for example, like I'm looking at some pieces. One thing what happened to me, I started collecting initially in the 2000. I think that's when I started collecting statues. For a couple of years, I collected Bowen Designs and some other companies. That was also Warner Brothers, some DC stuff. What it used to be, DC Direct or no, then DC Comics or DC Collectibles. And then I took a break for, I would say, 5 years, came back. And when I came back, I started collecting Sideshow because I was blown away by Sideshow's products. Quarter scale, 1/5 scale. But then I ran out of space very quick. And I said, man, this is not going to work. So then I started looking back at Bowen, and I started looking also into Kotobukiya. And I haven't changed, in the sense that since I started, and I've been collecting 1/6 scale, primarily 1/6 scale. I think the biggest pieces that I have now in my collection right now are the Twitterhead stuff, the 2.0, even though it's advertised as 1/6, technically is 1/5. And that's as large as I want to go. Not, I would love to have a space for anything bigger, but I'm just happy at that level because I feel that I can accommodate a lot more, and I'm still building. And that's the reason why I'm collecting the Twitterhead stuff, because the hope is that I'm able to collect the whole event, Avengers. I'm sorry, the Justice League, Justice League line. And which to me, it's kind of like I'm excited because they're building it, and it reminds me of the days when I was collecting Bowen.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that when Tweeterhead first started, I had envisioned, because they seemed like they were going to go down the Batman villains route.
Yes.
I was already envisioning how I would have something like the Spider-Man shelf behind me, but Batman, because I'm a fan of Batman too, but they didn't get very far in their villains line. So
yeah, they have a few things, but it's just like I think the problem they have, of course, is the scale difference now with the 2.0 being a bit larger, which I don't know what was the desire to go a little higher on it and still promote it as a 1/6. I really don't know. But yeah, it seems that a lot of people have been dissatisfied, particularly the original collectors from Twitterhead when they were collecting like you were doing the original line, the original Superpowers line, which are more based on the classic stuff. And now Superpowers it still has some of that classic stuff, but it has a more modern take. So I think a lot of people are hurt by it, because they feel like they were kind of forgotten or put aside just for whatever the company's trying to pursue now. Which is kind of, I think that's the thing that I feel that unfortunately we don't get to communicate as much. And I would say that the great thing about Randy Bowen is that Randy was available, at least to listen to the feedback. Randy wasn't, I would say, the easiest person to deal with, like some people who know him better in some instances. But when it came about interacting with the public, he was great. He listened and he took, those considerations, and that was a reason why people felt, really, I would say, attached to the company also, because they felt that something was being produced in their name. I feel the other companies, like with Sideshow, like people up to this day, they cry out for certain characters. They never get produced. And that's one of the reasons why I actually went and left also Sideshow, because I realized very early on that it will take forever just to get what I wanted. And other companies will be able to produce that. So I think at that time, Bowen was still alive. I said, Bowen can do it. Then Kotobukiya was doing it. But as you was mentioning, now Kotobukiya, the quality was never at the same level of Bowen. It has improved now. The quality is better than what it used to be, and it's great. It's great quality, but it's attached to a higher price tag. Like the most recent Cable that came out and the Deadpool that is coming out very soon. You're talking about $500 1/6 scale piece. And to me, that is like, how do we get this far into paying that? And there's a couple companies that I'm paying attention. I love the anime stuff. I love anime too. And there's companies that I love, like Sume Art from France. And some of the stuff they produce, you're looking at, and even Queen Studios, they're producing 1/6 scale statues based on anime. That stuff is $800, $1,000 for a 1/6 scale piece. And even though it's amazing detail, I'm just like, do I really want to get into this rabbit hole? Because I'm a completionist in some way, not like a full completionist, but I like to have at least a close to full roster. I'm not sure if this is for me. I think this is getting into a game where whoever has the most money to blow, and I think that is something that we're seeing a lot. How you feel about this prices right now?
Yeah, I think they're way too high. I mean, some of it's, we grew up in the Bowen era where they were, around $200 at the most for a while there. And yeah, spending $400 or $500 on a statue of similar size, I just couldn't do that. And of course, being much older and financially responsible, it's not the best investment for your money, right? You
Yes.
really make sure you have all of the rest of your life in order first before you start spending money on that kind of money on a statue. But people want it, and if they can afford it, then I guess they will. So
It's becoming like a young man's game, like in some way. Like a lot of the people who are collecting like crazy right now, they're just they're young and they may not have the same financial responsibilities, or perhaps they do, but they don't have the maturity, at least to see it. Hey, I could put this money on my 401k, or I can do this for my retirement, rather than just invest in something that I'm not going to get my money back in the end. Because ultimately, there was a time where it was easy to trade a lot of stuff and sell, even with Bowen, where you can make your money back in some. But that time is gone. Everything you buy nowadays is at the highest price possible, to the point where you're not gonna sell. I'm looking at some of the stuff. I look at the prices people are selling stuff. They're selling the lower than what they pay for, and some of the stuff is exclusive stuff. They pay probably $1,000 for it, and they sell it for $800, something like that. So they're losing a lot. I remember when I did buy and sell Bowen stuff. I could buy it, like you said, for $200, and all of a sudden sell it for $500 or something like that, because it was sold out piece. That is gone. I don't get to see that anymore. That's the reason why I stopped selling stuff a long time ago, because I realized that I was just losing money. And most of the time you get into these situations with people that I felt, what, I don't want to get into this anymore. If I buy it, it's because I want it, and because I want to keep it in my collection. Now, as you mentioned, you are not collecting as much anymore. Do you still collect anything besides just the statues, or anything besides the hardcover books?
Like I said, yeah, I collected comics for a long time. I did hardcovers for a long time, and statues as well. So kind of last year I decided, what, I need to stop, because and that's where I was thinking a lot about why am I collecting? Why do I do this? And I think I've just grown old or mature, or however you want to look at it, where I don't really need it anymore. I mean, I still love comics and the characters and the stories. So I continue to read, but spending the money to have a physical object, I think I'm probably done with that.
Now, one thing that I'm looking in the back of your display, and there's something that I always love and admire, and I remember when I saw it years ago, is that vehicle with the Fantastic Four, and that is a special commission. I know you commissioned that, correct?
No. I made it.
You made it?
Yeah. And it's like made out of cardboard and wood and stuff like that. It's nothing fancy, but I made it myself. Yeah.
Like, to be honest with you, at this point, I mean, if I tell people, if you need to collect, if you are a fan of Fantastic Four, there's maybe some things here and there, but Bowen has you covered. In my opinion, they had it. They still have it, and it's sad that we haven't really seen that much Fantastic Four over the years. Of course, we had the situation with Disney and Fox and everything, and trying to buy the rights and got the rights. Finally, they got it. We know that the movie is coming. Perhaps like what, 2-3 years from now, whatever, like the plan that the MCU has, which I'm excited for anyway. Hopefully I get to see it. We get that point.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see it, just to see the new interpretation of it. I'm still not convinced Mr. Fantastic's going to look good in a film. Even that little bit that we saw in the movie, it still didn't quite meet what I was hoping for. So
yeah, the last two movies, like what was the last movie that didn't do so well? And then the other one, the two that came before it. I don't know, man. I'm telling you, those movies, they were I still watch them, because I'm not a type of person that I'm going to be, I don't get offended like some people do with some of the choices they make. Like you said, I haven't got to the place where I feel like, man, they have done justice to the Fantastic Four. I would definitely love to see it. I know that the MCU can do it, but let's hope that they don't go too far left also on it, and destroy the spirit of what the Fantastic Four was.
Yeah, I think the FF is really tricky, right? There's this feeling of family, but adventure. They're not really classic superheroes as far as fighting bad guys. It's not really their point.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to write a film that captures that, that's going to take some work. So we'll
So,
see.
so what is it that now you really getting closer to the end of it? What is really your take on the movies now representing these characters? Like, how you feel about the MCU and this new phase, for example?
I like that they are trying to branch out, get away from, just the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're taking some chances, which is good. They're trying to diversify, not, not in the modern sense of, minorities and all that kind of stuff, but just try to get more variety to the characters and the other universe. So I think that's all good. They're certainly not hitting them all out of the park like they were the first 10 years. But
did you watch the what was that, the Quantumania?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I'm at the point where I kind of wait for it to show up on Disney Plus. So
yeah,
I did see the Black Panther movie. That's the last one I've seen. So
what do you think about that one?
It was okay. I liked Namor more than I was expecting. I was a little rankled by the fact that he wasn't, half Atlantean, and I guess they just didn't want to introduce that whole concept to the universe. I don't feel that Shuri was a strong enough character to drive the whole movie. I just don't know if I liked her enough to want to see her as the main character.
It was a tricky situation, and first of all, I think with the passing of Boseman, definitely kind of throw everything off their plan, so they have to come up with something. I think, like you said, I think the movie wasn't bad. I think the farewell to Boseman was there, which I totally get it. At the same time, it got bogged down a bit in some aspects where I feel like, it was not as a strong. And it's hard to really. It's a difficult situation because what to do? Do you replace the character with someone else? And that really throws everything off. However, they did it with War Machine, with and that was not a problem. But that was a secondary character in some way, or at least how the MCU presented. And in this case, being Black Panther, I don't know. It was a touchy situation, but yeah, I feel that this phase they're trying new ideas. Of course, I'm not going to spoil you Quantumania. I enjoy it. I liked it. My wife didn't like it as much. I think still the first movie is the best, the first Ant-Man movie. But I feel like I think that they are trying to build towards something, which also allows also for the Fantastic Four, which is something that they did in Quantumania. There's more of that sci-fi element in the film, which is something that is connected to the Fantastic Four universe itself. Like you said, it was not necessarily a history, or the Fantastic Four was, in reality, it was more about the sci-fi elements, about discovering new universes, traveling the universe, meeting new races, and all the things that happen while you have this family and the interaction with this family, which I think that's the amazing aspect. There's an amazing thing about the Fantastic Four, how human it feels, even though they are exploring, galaxies away. To me, that was in some way, it felt a lot like Star Trek, in some way.
Right. Similar thing. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that hopefully they can nail on in this interpretation that they have. But I don't know. I in some way I have read some I've been reading some articles where people are saying that in some way the superhero genre is kind of, I would say, dying out, but I think people are getting a little bit tired of it because we have so much of it. We've been watching it so much. I think at some point we just we end up doing the same thing as you do. I just say, well, you know what? I'm just gonna wait until it comes out on Disney Plus or whatever, and I do the same thing. It's just, I don't know. It's just different. It's just different. The excitement is not there as it used to be at some point.
Yeah, and I think it's that first 10 years is they really stuck the landing, right, with Endgame and Infinity War, and so the bar was set really
high.
And I guess they've got kind of a mini version of that with the FF, and then finally bring back was it one or two Avengers movie just within 3 or 4 years. I think that's the plan, right? So I think a smaller scale is in some ways is good, right? Don't be so ambitious. But I think one of the problems I think is, we're all, as fans, we're all looking for the big win, right? You're looking for that Infinity War Endgame movie all the time, and you can't have high stakes all the time. It's the same with comics, right? You can't have an event every year that's threatened the entire universe all the time. So I was really hoping for more individual movies where you just focused on the character, not world-ending, universe-ending stories. I really liked Winter Soldier. It's probably one of my favorites, smaller films, because it was about Cap, right?
That's right, yeah.
His friendship with Bucky. And yeah, you had the whole Shield thing, but I mean, it was really about him. So I wish we would have more stories like that.
Yeah, I think the problem, like you said, once they started doing the, once you do Infinity War and then Endgame, it's like you already raised the bar so high to the point that everybody's expecting the same level of excitement. And my problem was, even I remember when I look at it, is that when I watched the film and I was looking at the whole picture of the 10 years, of all the movies that they produced on that phase, in my mind was like, well, okay, where do we go from here? Because if you go back, then people are going to say, well, you're retracing the steps back. You're not building anything new. But at the same time, you already brought one of the biggest or most baddie characters that they have, which is Thanos. Who else? And there's other characters, but now you're in this situation where everything has to be grandiose, everything has to be big, everything has to be huge. And unfortunately, it's like the expectation, the audiences are expecting that. But I would say the same thing as you were saying. I totally agree. We go back to the human stories, the small little, pockets of stories here and there. I think that's where the MCU shines, and that is the same thing. That's the reason why I prefer Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man movie, because it was all about the Ant-Man. And I think there's so many characters on Marvel universe that can be done so well. Like even on television, like you saw the Daredevil story on Netflix. That is a fantastic interpretation of Daredevil. I don't think there's other better show that has been done from Marvel. And Marvel, Disney Plus has tried to do this stuff even with She-Hulk, all of that. It wasn't as great, but at least they were trying something similar, but not on the same dark level. But that way that they did it, they stayed true to the character. Of course, they did the interpretation for the show, but it was done so well. And I feel that they can continue doing stuff like that, bringing some of those small stories, make it more human. Because once you start going into the universe, into this new galaxies and stuff like that, then you risk you're losing a lot of that human contact. The things that you can say, I can relate with this character. That was the difference, I think, with Winter Soldier, is that you felt as Captain felt. He was conflicted about the situation, about doing the right thing, as defending his country, defending America, but at the same time, he's conflicted about his friend. And I think we can all relate to that. We can conflict about doing the right thing as good citizens of this nation, but also as, what can we do where our friends are on the cross line? Are we going to sacrifice them for the well-being of what we have, of our job as, protectors of this country? So that's the thing, we can go back to those stories where we can relate. I think that the MCU has potential. How you feel about the DCEU? Or DC movies?
You mean the mess that it is? Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm not James Gunn's biggest fan, but at least they've got someone who's trying to, map it out. And, again, they're trying to diversify also, right? Get away from the main Justice League characters as well with their next film. So, I think that's good. I think they've got some very ambitious plans. I'd be curious to see if they even make it to the second phase of their stuff. Because all it takes is one bad movie, right? And then they change course. So I'm hopeful because again, a variety of characters, different takes on things is always helpful and interesting. yeah, we'll see.
Well, all right. So now, really coming to the end of the podcast, and we have talked about a lot of things in this episode, from this, from that, from this, and the photography. Now, I want to say again, thank you very much for what you have done as a collector, as part of the community. I love what you do with your photographs that you have done over the years. You have always been a source of inspiration. As you said, it's different from toy photography, because toy photography, you have the ability to pose and do so many things. You have that, but with statues, it's all about imagining from the different angles how you can present this image. And to me, that it's more complicated than just toy photography. But you have done amazing. You have a website, you have your Instagram where you share all that information, and you share your images, and I love it. And definitely, you also have a book, correct? You sell you have a book where you sell some of your.
Right. I've got both the website where you could buy prints of individual pictures, and then I put together a couple photo books that you just buy directly from me that you could purchase also.
Yeah, and whoever is watching this and has stayed to this episode, and I'm familiar with the work that Joe does, I would recommend. I will have the links in the description for those who are interested, so they can go to your website, so they can go to your Instagram as well, so they can get to see your work and definitely be inspired by it. Now, before we end, do you have anything that you want to share to whoever is also interested in doing the things that you have done as in photography? They want to get also into doing the same thing. What would be your recommendation to them?
Oh, definitely just get a camera and start playing around. I mean, don't be scared. I mean, I had no idea what to do early on, and I certainly made lots of mistakes along the way. And, I still have a lot to learn. So I'm just always trying to improve my techniques and learning also. But you can do it. You just take that leap, and start trying.
And now a recommendation to anyone that wants to get into statue collecting based on your years of experience. What would be your advice to all of them?
Definitely have a boundary of what you want to get, right? No, whether it's a certain character or even if it's a team or a certain company or whatever, just limit it so that you're not, it can easily get out of control to where you can start trying to buy everything. Just buy what you love, buy what speaks to you, what means something to you, and that way you'll always enjoy it.
All right, Joe, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for this interview. It was a pleasure to have you here as a guest. Hopefully we can get it also. We can have you again in the future, but thank you for your time, and thank you for what you do and what you have done as a collector.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate all the kind words. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget, I will have the links if you are interested on supporting Joe also, buying his, buying the books or buying the prints so you can showcase with your collection. Go to the link and look at the website, and also follow him on Instagram. Follow him on social media so you can see the stuff that he does. So my friends, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. God bless you. Take care. And I will talk to you again. Bye-bye.